What's up everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Shawn, GILL CPA with Neutron Tax. Today we're going to talk about changing, updating, or amending your tax return. Let's get to the desk and talk about it. So sometimes you need to make changes to a tax return that you already filed. Maybe you need to include some income you forgot, let's say W-2s, 1099s, K-1s. Maybe there's tax deductions or tax credits you were eligible for that you forgot to take, or you need to change your filing status. Maybe you need to add or remove dependents. There's a lot of things that you can change. Luckily, you can do this by what's called amending. So amending a tax return simply just means that you are taking your filed tax return, showing the IRS what the numbers were, and now showing them what they should be on a corrected basis. It's like a before and after. So this is done for individual returns on the form 1040X. So you'll see 3 columns on that front page of the 1040X. It's basically before, after, and the middle column is the changes being made. By the way, if you only made a small error on your taxes, maybe like a very small math error, I wouldn't bother to amend for that. The IRS will usually fix little things like that and send you a letter. So if it's just a teeny tiny little change that needs to be made, I'd probably just save myself the headache and not even bother doing that. Hey, so honestly, amending your tax return can get pretty complicated if you're going at it alone. I always recommend to people to use some kind of tax professional or a CPA, such as myself, conveniently. So you can go down to the link in the description below and book a call with me directly, and we can talk about your tax situation and what you need to amend and see if it makes sense for you and how we can help. So go do that, and let's get back to the video right now. Also, something to keep in mind is that when you go to find a tax professional to help you amend your tax return, they're going to have to essentially recreate the whole return as if they filed it originally. So make sure you keep track of all the documents you used originally. So your original W-2s, 1099s, dependent information, bills, all that kind of stuff, insurance, medical expenses. So you want to make sure you have those documents because you will need to redo your tax return to show what the original looked like before you go and add those changes in for the amendment. Also note that when you file a tax return, like I mentioned in our video about filing, if you haven't filed in multiple years, you're filing 2 tax returns. Unless you live in a state that has no personal income tax, you will be filing a state income tax return and a federal income tax return. So if you're amending, make sure to keep that in mind because chances are you're going to want to amend both your federal and your state, and the procedures to amend a state tax return vary from state to state, so you'll have to look into what is a specific case in your state. So good news is amending your tax return can actually lead to an additional tax refund, but it can also lead to additional tax due. When it comes to the refunds, you have 3 years from the original due date, the original filing date of the tax return that you're amending, before you can't amend to get a refund. If it's a tax return where you originally paid tax, it's 2 years from the filing date of that original tax return, assuming that that date is later. Also a pro tip, don't try to amend your tax return like 2 minutes after you just filed the return. So let's say you filed the return, realize you made a mistake and it's been a couple minutes or whatever it may be. Don't try to go back and amend then, because you need to wait until your tax return has been processed and accepted. So the IRS has to process and accept the original tax return before it can be amended. Also, another pro tip is if in your original tax return you were expecting a refund and you haven't gotten that refund yet, don't try to amend. Wait until you get the refund before you try to file an amendment, because honestly, the way the IRS is, you're just increasing the chances that you confuse them, and you never want to confuse the IRS when it comes to your tax situation because it just never leads to a good thing. They're never going to accidentally send you more money than you're owed. They're only going to come after you for more money, even if they're mistaken. So take a pause there, wait till you get your refund before you need to amend. Even if it's an increased refund, wait for that first one to come through, then amend, and you'll get the difference that you're expected to get from that amendment. Also, it can take up to 16 weeks for the IRS to process your amendment. So if you haven't heard from them and you haven't gotten your refund or whatever it may be, just sit tight. They're not the fastest over there, so be patient. Now, speaking of amending your tax return, how do you even do that? So for any tax returns that were filed after 2019, you can do this with the e-file system. meaning that you can do all of this digitally. For any tax returns that came before 2019, they're not eligible to be electronically amended. They have to be amended via paper filing, which is just like a tax professional, jargon that we use to say they have to be mailed in with wet signatures and the original 1099s, W-2s, and K-1s attached for the government to look at. And we don't like to do this because, one, it's a headache for pretty much everybody involved, right? You have to come up with all the paper versions of these documents, sign with a pen on the paper version, create one copy for the federal government, create one for the state, go to the post office, get it all postmarked, and then put your trust in the United States postal system to make sure it gets to where it needs to go and doesn't get lost. So we always recommend, if possible, do everything electronically. But for certain tax years before 2019, or all tax years before 2019, it's just not possible to amend electronically. So be ready to paper file, which means also build in a bigger buffer of time to get this done if you're in a rush, because it will take longer to achieve this. And it also takes them a bit longer to process paper filed returns, in my personal experience. By the way, to amend electronically with the e-file system, again, that only applies to tax returns that were done after 2019, but the original tax return has to be e-filed as well. So just because it's after 2019, if you paper filed your 2019, 2020, or 21 tax return and you're trying to amend it, you have to amend that with paper filing as well. If you did it electronically, you're in the clear, you can amend electronically. So in conclusion, that's what amending a tax return is and how it works. Also, a pro tip I want to give you guys is, some people will tell you if you amend a tax return that you're raising the red flags, you're going to get audited, blah, 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 by the IRS. Don't believe that. There's no evidence to support that. Amend a tax return if you need to. If there's deductions or credits that you left off that you think you're entitled to, amend the tax return, get that benefit. If there's income that you haven't reported, amend that tax return, make sure you're compliant and everything you have on file with the IRS and the state is accurate. Don't let people scare you with these kind of false claims. Most people, like 99.9% of them, have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to taxes. Trust a professional. Amend if you need to. Thanks for watching this video. I will catch you guys in the next one. So that was the end of this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment. It helps me grow the channel. If you need help with your taxes, you can book a call with me directly at the link below in the description, and you can also sign up for our email list. We only send out an email about once a month, and that's everything I need to tell you. So I will see you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace. Have a good day. Appreciate the views.